Hey gang, using the promo code MTGMudsta, one word, all caps, will get you 10% off orders of $10 or more at Flipside Gaming, Original Magic Art, and orders of singles at Multizone. If they don't have what you're looking for, you could check out TCG Player and use my affiliate link to help support the channel. Looking for a way to bling out your deck and not spend a fortune? Alter Sleaze can help with that, and you can help with the channel at the same time by using my affiliate link. Or, if you're looking to join the Goblin Gang, you can always support me through Patreon. More EDH gameplay from the Gamebreaker gang. In today's game, Max is playing Karametra, and his opening hand has a Scattered Groves, Croson Verge, Farhaven Elf, Freyalise, Seer Sundial, Soul Ring, and a Darksteel Citadel. Dr. Martin, who I'm going to refer to as Marty for this game, is playing his Raff deck, keeping a Reliquary Tower, a Plains, an Island, Irrigated Farmlands, Mystic Confluence, Route, and Swords to Plowshares. Martin is playing his Ramos deck, keeping a Croesus Charm, Dimir Charm, Izzet Charm, Orzhov Charm, Plains, Swamp, and Savage Lands. Nick is playing his Oros deck, keeping a Blasphemous Act, Zozu, Utter End, Plains, Sacred Foundry, Polluted Delta, and Evolving Wilds. Max wins a die roll and starts us off. Max plays a tap Croson Verge. Martin plays a tap Savage Lands. Nick plays Evolving Wilds. Marty plays a tapped Irrigated Farmlands, passing. Max draws and plays a tap Scattered Groves. He then taps the Croson Verge to cast a Soul Ring. Martin plays an Island. Nick plays his Polluted Delta, passing. Marty plays an Island, and Nick loses 1 as he sacrifices the Delta. Max untaps and plays a Plains. He then taps out for Karametra, while Nick puts to field his Blood Crypt. At the end of turn, Martin casts an Izzet Charm, picking the mode of draw 2, then discard 2. Progenitus is one of those cards, which has Martin shuffling it into his library. Martin draws for turn, plays a Scrubland, and passes. Nick plays a Sacred Foundry, taking 2 so it comes in untapped. He then casts a Zozu, passing. Marty plays a Plains and takes 2 from Zozu. Max plays a Darksteel Citadel and then takes 2 from Zozu as well. He cracks his Croson Verge and shortcuts, first casting a Farhaven Elf. This means he'll get a land from casting the creature, plus 1 as it enters, plus the 2 from the Verge, all at once, to save him some time, which, in turn, has him taking 8 from Zozu. At the end of turn, Martin then casts a Croesus Charm to bounce Karametra back to Max's hand. Martin plays a Plains for turn, taking 2 from Zozu, and passing. Nick plays a tap Temple of Triumph, taking 2 from his own Zozu, and then scrying 1. He then casts a Sulfuric Vortex before heading to combat. He goes at Max, who blocks with the Elves. Marty takes 2 on his upkeep, and plays a Plains, taking 2 more from Zozu. Max takes 2 on his upkeep from the Vortex, and then taps 5 mana for Freyalise. He then downticks her to blow up the Vortex, and then plays out a Knight of Autumn, which as it enters, he picks the mode to have him gain 4 life. At the end of turn, Martin casts a Jeskai Charm and has it deal 4 damage to Freyalise. Martin draws and takes 2 from Zozu as he plays a Forest and passes. Nick drops a Plains and takes 2. He then pays 5 mana for Orbs of Warding and passes. At the end of turn, Marty flashes out Raff. Marty draws and plays a Plains. He takes 2 from Zozu and passes. Max draws and plays a Seer Sundial. He plays a Forest, taking 2 as it comes in, and then pays 2 from the Sundial trigger to draw a card. Max then recasts from his hand Karametra and passes to Martin. Martin draws and plays a Swamp. He takes 2 as it comes in, and then casts Ramos. Responding to this, Marty casts a Mystic Confluence, picking the most to force Martin to pay 3 he doesn't have, and draw 2 cards. Nick draws and casts Erebos in his main phase, There wasn't really any life gain as of yet, but there certainly won't be now. Marty untaps and draws. He plays a Mystifying Maze as his land for turn, taking 2 from Zozu. Max plays a Plains and takes 2. He pays to draw from the Sundial trigger as it enters, and he then passes to Martin. Martin plays a Temple Garden tapped, and takes 2 from Zozu. He casts Lightning Greaves before passing turn. Nick draws for turn, and casts Solemn Simulacrum. He finds a basic, taking only 1 because of the orbs as it enters. At the end of Nick's turn, Marty flashes out Will Kenrith. Marty then untaps for his turn. He draws, and plays a Reliquary Tower, taking 2 from Zozu. He upticks Will by 2, turning Nick's 2 creatures into 0/3s with no abilities. Max draws, and plays a tap Stirring Wildwoods. He pays 2 to draw from the Sundial, and comments how nice it is for his landfall-based deck to not be taking damage while it's doing what it's supposed to. Max then casts a Genesis, and goes to find a land from Karametra's on-cast. Max then pays 2 mana to draw from the land entering, and triggering the Sundial, then passes. At the end of turn, Martin uses Naya Charm to try and take out Raff. Responding to this, Marty flashes out an Everflowing Chalice, multi-kicking it, and his commander is then put to the command zone. Martin plays an island, and recasts Ramos. He puts the Greaves onto his commander, and once resolved, heads to combat. He goes swinging at Will Kenrith, hitting the Planeswalker, and he passes. Nick untaps and draws. He plays a mountain, and then taps enough for Crown of Doom. He then pays 2, activating it, and giving it away to Max. Nick then swings the Solemn at Max, which gets pumped by +2/+0, making it a 2/3 with no abilities because of Will Kenrith's ability still being in effect. Max blocks with the Knight of Autumn, and Nick passes. Marty draws and plays a Plains. He takes 2 since Zozu is now back to its old self, and realizes that his Planeswalker shouldn't actually be gone since Ramos wasn't enough to take him out. 5 is then paid for Tezzeret the Seeker, and he upticks the Walker to untap the Chalice. He then upticks Will, targeting Genesis and the Solemn, and passes. Max draws, and casts a Johnny Steadfast in his main phase. We then see an Evolution Sage hitting the field, and Max counts up his Devotion before grabbing a Forest from the Karametra trigger. He takes 2 as it comes in from Zozu, and Max then puts out a Green Warden of Marasa, and returns to hand Freyalise as it enters. He then downticks a Johnny, giving each creature and each other Planeswalker he controls a +1/+1 counter or loyalty counter respectively. We then see Max's land for turn, a Forest, which has him taking 2 from Zozu, but also proliferating from his Evolution Sage. He doesn't pay to draw from the Sundial though, and instead, using the same amount of mana, activates the Crown of Doom and gives it to Marty. Moving to combat, Genesis and Karametra go at Marty's Planeswalkers, and responding to the Declare attackers, Marty casts Rout by paying the extra to cast it as an instant. The board is then wiped, and Max passes. Martin plays a land for turn, but Zozu is thankfully gone, so I don't have to edit any more life changes for lands coming in. He casts a Swarm Intelligence, and passes to Nick. Nick plays a mountain, hurting my soul because it's a white bordered one like his other basics, and he taps 6 to cast Oros. He then passes. Marty untaps and draws. He downticks Will Kenrith, drawing 2 cards and reducing the cost of instant, sorceries, and planeswalkers by 2 colorless until his next turn. He plays a Plains for turn, and taps his Chalice for 3 before untapping it with Tezzeret, and then tapping it again to have 6 colorless floating. He uses some of that land to cast Oath of Teferi. The enchantment enters, and exiles the Crown until end of turn, which will return to its owner's control as it comes back at the end step. He then upticks Will again, having Oros become a 0/3 with no abilities. He then downticks Tezzeret by 5 to find from his library a Gilded Lotus and put it to field. He then passes, which has the Crown coming back under Nick's control. Max plays a Savannah, paying 2 to draw from the Sundial. He then taps 6 to bring out the new Multani, and goes to find a land while it's on the stack from Karametra's trigger. He grabs another Forest, and pays the 2 from the Sundial trigger to draw a card. Max then taps enough for Mana Reflections, and then upticks Ajani to give his creatures +1/+1, First Strike, Vigilance, and Lifelink, but he doesn't do anything with it, and passes. Martin draws, and passes. At the end of turn, Nick activates Erebos to lose 2 life and draws a card. Nick draws for turn and plays a command tower. He then redonates the crown to Marty and passes. At the end of turn, Marty flashes back out Raff. Responding to this, Martin casts an Ojutai's command, picking the modes to counter target creature spell and draw a card. He gets a copy from his Swarm Intelligence, but that's a bit overkill. Marty untaps and draws. He plays an Academy Ruins as his land drop, and floats mana with his Lotus and Chalice before untapping them with Tezzeret again. He then taps the Chalice again and has 9 floating mana total, and he casts a Nezahal. He then uses the remaining floating to give Max the crown, and Marty then upticks Will Kenrith again, making Max's Multani into a 0/3. And then because of the Oath being out, down ticks Will again to draw 2 cards and reduce the cost of his instants, sorceries, and planeswalkers. He then upticks Tezzeret again and passes to Max. Max draws for turn and plays out Kamal in his main phase. He finds a forest with a Karametra trigger, which comes in, and he pays to draw from it. Max then gives the crown back to Marty, and taps some lands to activate Kamal's ability to animate lands, making 6 of them into creatures. He then downticks Ajani to give them all a +1/+1 counter. He swings the lands, and the now 1/4 Multani at Marty. Before moving to blocks, Marty brings back out Raff, and asks for a total of how much damage is coming. Keep in mind all the creatures are getting +2/+0 because of the crown now, and Marty blocks what he can, but once blockers are declared, Max activates Kamal's second ability to overrun the board. Responding to this, Marty uses Swords to Plowshares on the Darksteel Citadel, which would normally be gaining Max 4 life before it gets pumped, but he actually gains nothing because Erebos is out. Marty is unfortunately then taken out, and Max passes to Martin. Martin plays a tap Mystic Monastery for turn, and casts a Taigam Ojutai Master. He equips the monk with the Greaves once he resolves, and passes. At the end of turn, Nick loses 2 life twice to activate Erebos, and draws a card each time. Nick pays 3 mana in his main phase for a Repercussion, and taps enough for a Blasphemous Act at the reduced cost. This takes Max out with extreme prejudice, and Martin casts a Dimir Charm, getting a copy of it. He picks the mode of looking at his top 3, and keeping 1 and putting the rest to the graveyard. He and Nick also then take 13 from Taigam and Oros getting hurt respectively, and Nick then passes. Martin draws and passes. Nick draws and plays out a Witch Hunt in his main phase. Nick then puts to stack a 5-drop that I can't quite make out, but thankfully it's promptly countered by Martin using Dromar's Charm. At the end of turn, Witch Hunt is then donated to Martin by its own ability. Martin takes 4 in his upkeep from the Witch Hunt, and draws. He taps enough for Ramos, and gears him up with the Greaves. Ramos then hits Nick for 4, and Martin passes. Nick draws for turn, and counts up his lands. He taps 6 for Open the Vault, which brings back all the enchantments and artifacts from the graveyard to the field for each player. The Thought Prison, which I finally found out after 5 minutes of searching Scryfall, enters and exiles Merciless Eviction from Martin's hand. Nick also gets to go and find a basic with the Solemn entering. Martin takes 4 from Witch Hunt, draws, and counts up his lands as well. He taps 2 of each for Progenitus, which he'd redrawn at some point. This gives Ramos 5 +1/+1 counters, and Martin also takes 2 from the Thought Prison for Progenitus sharing colors with the exiled spell. Nick then gets hit for 9 with Ramos, and Martin wins the game. Game review time. So that was actually kinda cool. It seemed like most of the decks were able to do what they wanted to, with Max's deck I think doing the best out of all of them. He wanted to get a bunch of lands, and he got them, and he was even able to kill someone with them. I won't say too much about Marty's deck since we've already seen in a previous game, which if you haven't watched it, please make sure you go and do, because it does a great job of showcasing just how powerful Azorius Planeswalkers can be. Nick's Oros deck, I think, is probably another one of those variants of the Mardu Urza's Armor-based effects that he's Urza Armor Tribal deck, and it was fantastic to see him take someone out using Repercussions and Blasphemous Act. That's definitely been something that's been on my bucket list for a long time. Martin's win was also incredibly sweet, considering he discarded the Progenitus early on and it got shuffled into his library, and the fact that it gave just enough counters to make Ramos lethal even if Nick had blocked it or not because of repercussion. Please be sure to tune in every Monday and Thursday at 11 AM Eastern Standard Time for a guaranteed new video. You can also follow me on Twitter at MTGMudsta. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/MTGMudsta. And lastly, you can check me out when I stream at twitch.tv/MTGMudsta. This video is brought to you in support by my patrons. If you're looking for a way to help out the channel, please be sure to visit the link below. Thank you all for watching this video, and don't forget, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.